Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to my part 2 of the upgrade of my backup, editing, and sometimes gaming rig. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and put everything that I put together in the last video onto my test bench. So let me show that to you right here. So here it is, all installed on my test bench. And I'll have to be totally upfront with you. Full disclosure here. I already tried turning this thing on a few hours ago, and it did not work well. It actually only saw half the memory. Actually, it saw none of the memory until I pulled one of the memory sticks out. And then I was able to put one memory stick, 8 gig of memory stick at that point, into the first slot when you have a single stick. And when I did that, it actually saw it. But I will outline all the steps here on the screen right now so you get an idea of all the things that I did. The bottom line was, it turned out, to my surprise actually, although I've heard about this happening, it's never happened to me before, the actual CPU chip had to be reseated. So I actually had to come in here, pull the cooler off, pull the CPU chip out, and actually reseat it. Unfortunately, I didn't film this, but I was in the middle of troubleshooting, which lasted a couple hours actually, because I thought at first that I had a bad motherboard or a bad CPU. But when I took the cooler off, pulled the CPU chip out, unlatching it from the CPU socket, and then putting it in and holding it down with 2 fingers like this, pressing on top of the CPU with one hand and pulling the latch over with the other hand. And then I brought the whole thing back up and it worked fine. I just wanted to let everybody know the problem that I had with this. Now it did come up, but what I've done now is I've gone ahead and I've set it up so I am using my 4K 60 capture card from Elgato. It has the screen right here. It's waiting for input. It's configured with the output from this particular board. If I come around here, you'll see what I mean. I've set it up so that this output cable here is going right to the Elgato at the back of my other PC. I also, rather than using this very low-powered power supply that I have in my test bench, I actually took the actual power supply that I plan on putting in the final PC, right, the Corsair CX650. And I also wanted to make sure that that's working okay with this PC, so that was another reason that I did that. I've got all of the front panel connectors connected. In the case of the test bench, as you may recall, if you've ever seen my videos on building this, I have the power switch, have the reset switch, and the 2 lights. Power on is green, hard drive activity is red. I also put the speaker on. I always like doing this, and they used to come with every motherboard. They don't anymore, these little speakers. It actually was very helpful having that on there because it showed code that I was getting. It did 1 solid beep and 2 short beeps, which indicated a serious memory problem. What I've also done is I've attached a watt meter to it so I can see how much power this thing is drawing, and I have it reset to watt. So at this point, all I have to do, turn on the power supply, and you'll see what the motherboard does. It automatically comes up with RGB by default, and so does the video card. Well, actually, the video card doesn't come on until I power the thing on, but you'll see that. And then I'll hit the power button, and we'll see what happens on the screen here with the Elgato. So let me hit the power button. Got the RGB showing, got the RGB now on the video card as well. And let's see what we get here. Do we get anything on the screen? Yep, it's coming up. Let me capture this. I missed the logo, but that's okay. Now after this is done, I'm then going to take the backup editing rig that is sitting right over here, powered off right now, and I'm going to pull everything out of here. Put it back somewhere safe until I'm ready to build the next PC for my grandson. And I'll take all of this stuff and put it into that case. I have not touched anything in the BIOS. So I'll show you what I do by default when I come in and use this BIOS. Okay, here we are in the BIOS. Let me show you what I do at first. I take a quick look, but I like to go to easy modes. I don't know why it defaults to the expert mode. Maybe they made a change for this particular version of BIOS. And it shows generally where we're at. It sees both memories, the G.Skill, a total of 16 gigabytes of DDR4, but it's running at only 2133 megahertz, even though the memory is rated for 3200. That 3200 is an overclocking, and I'll show you that in a moment. It shows the 2 fans that are running, the CPU fan on the cooler, and the chassis fan 1, which is the test bench, the fan I have hovering, pointing down right from the test bench. It's running pretty slow right now. So it does recognize all the parts appropriately. But look at this, the DOCP. Now, that's another word in the ASUS BIOS for the XMP, the Extreme Memory Profile, which you see on other manufacturer boards. It's the same thing. It means, do you want to go to a default profile for overclocking the memory? And usually there's a couple of different profiles on it. Let's see what we have here. Let's see what we got. It looks like it just has a profile 1. Let me click on profile 1, and it says performance is best when the memory clock is 1-to-1 sync, etc., etc. I will say, okay, I'm accepting that. That will overclock the memory, but not until I reboot it. So let me do a save and exit. Look at all the things that it changes. It's not just the speed of the memory that's going up to 3200 megahertz, but it also changes some of the timing parameters from auto to specific numbers that are the maximum that that particular memory can configure with. It also changes the default voltage from auto to 1.35. So these are all parameters that that profile has built into it by the motherboard manufacturer, in this case ASUS. So I'll say okay to that, and we'll see what it comes up next. Okay, that time we saw the startup screen. What do we have in terms of going? Let's go back to easy mode, because that's like a summary screen. And now we have the memory running at 3200 megahertz. That's really all we changed by going to profile 1, which forced it at the fastest speed that that memory supported. But it also shows the storage. Now, I don't have anything on that storage. It's brand new out of the box, so there's nothing been installed on it. That's why I didn't have to do anything to tell it to boot up into the BIOS. It did not see a boot record on that drive. There is no other drive on this other than the M2 that's hidden back in there, right? As you may recall, between the video card and the CPU. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hard drive that I happen to have. Let me go and get it. Here we go. This is a 500 gigabyte hard drive that I've taken out of another PC, but it works fine. I did install Windows on this already with another ASUS board, so hopefully it does boot and I won't have to reinstall it. But I'm going to lag it over here. I'm going to connect it up to the motherboard to the first SATA port, which I believe, well, let me shut it down first. Hit the power off. Going off now. I believe the first SATA port is right here. Let's see. Okay. And then I got to put power on this. So let me find a SATA power, which is one right here. I'll just grab the first one I come up with. Okay, so I'm grabbing this one here. And let's see, got the key right? I think that's it. I think the key goes in this way. There we go. So now I have the key into the hard drive. Just leave it here for now. And then I'll try to power this thing back up and see what we get. So if I hit the power on button, and I'll come to the screen. Now if that is bootable, it should try to boot right after the entrance screen. Let's see what happens. But we'll see how that works out. Let me go back to the screen capture so I can catch that in either case and see what we get here. There we go. I'm screen capturing it now. It is booting into Windows, that's for sure. Like I said, this was loaded on an ASUS motherboard prior to this. A different model, but you know, sometimes they're close enough. Oh, we're coming up. Please wait. Let me see if it lets me log in. Yeah, it did. There's hesitation there. I guess it's trying to configure to this motherboard. And we're into Windows. Wow, that's good. Let me see what it looks like here. Let me look at this PC. And we see a drive C. Almost no disk used. I don't remember using this for much. I don't think I installed any applications on it. But it seems like it is up and running. Let's see what we got here. Let me click on the internet. There I am. Does it come up? So I think we're working now. With that minor problem we had with the CPU, I think this is fine. It is loading some stuff right now. It's probably trying to catch this hard drive up with the changes for this motherboard. And the video card as well. I don't believe I had the same video card in there either. Okay, now for the next step. Let me go ahead and take out the pieces from the other PC. Okay, we're ready to go. I have the backup gaming and editing rig here. And we're going to start removing the parts from it. And then we'll immediately follow that with putting in the new parts. And then, as I said before, then we'll check it out. Okay, here we go. The first thing I have to take is the video card out. So at this point, I have everything out that I want to take out. And a lot of cable management is going to be necessary when I put this stuff back in. Okay, let's start getting this stuff back into this cabinet, the new one, that is. Oh, by the way, almost forgot this. Obviously, I couldn't, but putting the new one in, you always have to take the I/O shield off when you remove a motherboard. This follows the motherboard, so make sure you don't forget that. I'm going to start with the power supply. Now, this is something I've learned since I've been making YouTube videos and doing these modern builds, that this is the right way to go. And the reason I say that is the 12-volt power supply for the motherboard. We want to have that cable ready so we can connect it up to the motherboard before it actually gets locked in place. Actually, as you're dipping it in, if you can. But in addition to that, I found that getting all the cables you plan on using together out of the bundle and ready to go makes it a lot easier. And then if you have a non-modular one, again, this is both this idea is for non-modular, bundle up the ones that you will not be using, and they can duck in right next to the power supply. So I've already got those bundled in from the previous build that this one is. And of course I have the screws that have been following this power supply all along. So I'll make sure we put these screws in because they're the right length. Get those ready, put them here on the side. That way we have those ready to go. Let's get the power supply in. It is off, make sure that it is off. You know what, let me for now put the back on just to keep the cables from getting pinched. Nice captured screws, and it's real easy to get in there. Get this thing over. Make sure these cables are out of the way, as much as possible anyway. Got the 2 fan cables already sticking through there. And this is the important one, the 12 volts. I did have a problem with this, so be careful. This fan cable, I didn't want to undo all of the cable management, so I just sort of pulled it out from there and wrapped it around because it was in the way of the I/O shield. So I got that out of the way. The other thing is, I think I mentioned this screw here, which I had to put spacers in it. Well, I did try it, and I still need that, even with this motherboard. So it's not the motherboard. There must be a dip in here. I didn't do any measurements or anything, but that must be the case. Okay, now let's get the motherboard in here. So let's get the motherboard in here. No I/O shield needed ahead of time. That's real nice. Maneuver it in here. I want to get this 12-volt power supply connected first. So I'm going to turn it around. I'm only using 8 of the ones for the power. We don't have a very high-powered CPU or, video card for that matter, so it shouldn't matter. You have to put the 8 in, though, according to the manual, and you optionally can add the extra 4 if your particular power needs require it. So I'll get this in here. It'll be a lot easier getting it in here now than it would be if I went ahead and tried that later. Even this is challenged, even outside the motherboard being connected in. Even that's a challenge. So it's just a little thing I've learned on a tight-fitting case like this one. You should get that in there first. Now we can take the motherboard and put it into place. Let's get it into place like this. And then I can go ahead and start putting the screws in. See, they lined up? Yeah, they are. Okay, that did it. All the screws are in. And now I'm going to need to connect up everything that's low. So I'll start with the power supply, the 24-pin connector for the power supply. Make sure it snaps. Then let's do these 2 fans. So there's 1 fan here. There should be a fan connector nearby. Let me check the manual. According to the manual, there's 2 of them over here on this header. So I'll have to connect one that I can reach right now, or I'll have to reroute those cables, those fan connectors, back to this part here so I can get them out. So I can't do those right now, but there is one right over here somewhere. So let me go ahead and connect that one up. The chassis fan is right here. And this is the hardest one to get. Okay, so that's in. This one next to it is the pump. The one way over here is the option one in case you put a second fan on the cooler. And it looks like the only ones that I have at this point that are besides that, the USB 3 is right here. So I'm going to have to reroute the USB 3 one over here. So I got some rerouting from the back in order to get the connectors on. So let me go ahead and jump to that. Okay, now I think I have everything going to the right place, through the right grommet that is, so I can get up to this. So let me start connecting some of this stuff. I'll do the USB 3.0 as the first one I see. It'll go right here. This is the front panel USB 3.0. Okay, this is the SSD, so I'll put it in the first SATA connector. By the way, these two fans, they were real difficult. I had to remove the hard drive cage in here in order to route these through here. So it was not a simple task. The wires are coming across on the other side. So let me go ahead and put those in right now. Make sure that they reach. One is longer than the other as expected. So let me put them in here. So one goes there and the other one goes back here, way back over here. So the two chassis fans are there. I've got the RGB, that's the front two fans primarily, and the strip that's underneath the power supply. They're all connected to the back to that one. Make sure the 12 volt is in the right place with the little arrow there. So that one goes right here. There we go. Let me get the sound connector. So that should go right here. That's the front panel sound. And now these last ones. Now this case does not have, as some of you may have noticed if you've seen the other video, it does not have a hard drive LED, but it does have a power LED. So let me make sure I get the ones that it does have in the right place. The power LED, they'll go in this little terminal right over here where the speaker is at. Power LED are this top ones with the plus closer to the front of the case. So which ones are the power LED? Oh, they're in the same ribbon cable with the power switch, it looks like. So let's get it so that the plus is in the right place and the minus. I have a separate video on getting these things in the right place. And then the power switch goes right next to that, as I recall. There's no polarity to the power switch. The LEDs, by the way, you won't hurt anything, as I've said in that other video, if you get them wrong. They just won't light up. The power switch does not have a polarity, so that goes there. And then I believe right across from it is the reset switch, also without a polarity. So we'll put that right across from the power switch. I probably should have been better off putting in the reset switch first, but we'll see. But I got it. I got it in there. So the reset switch is that way, power LED, and the actual speaker. So let me bend these wires a little bit so they stay out of the way. Okay. And then these will all go and they'll be dressed later in the back of the case. Push in what I can on them. And that should take care of all of the front panel. This, USB, got all the power cables, got all the fans. So we have everything that we need on this side. So the last thing I need to put in is the video card. So let me get the video card and put him in place. By the way, there's some things I have to take off, some labels. I don't think there's going to be much of a tear, but let me take off this connector, which I just put back on. And let me take off one of the HDMI ones now, just so I have it open for testing. I'm going to test with HDMI. That should be ready now. And then this will go in right into here. Same two slots, I would hope. Looks like it. Here we go. It is in place. And I always like to put the screws back so it doesn't cause any sagging problems, or reduce the sagging problems anyway. Those are the same two I took out from the old video card. And then last but not least, although I accidentally found this out while I was testing it, if you left this power off, it still worked. But I guess it wouldn't be able to support extensive graphics in that case, so we'll see. But let me go ahead and get this in place. You got the 6 and the 2. You got to make sure that they're locked together with that little lock there so that they go in together properly, like that. And make sure that this is on the other side. This, the latch, get this in. And that's it, it's locked in, and I'll fix it later in terms of the cable management. I think at this point, oh, I forgot something. Way over here is the other RGB. So I need to plug that RGB connector in. So what I will do, I will disconnect the fan from that connector, and then on this cable here, you should try to divide up your RGB if you have multiple connectors like this, because there's a current limitation to it. Let's make sure we got 12 to 12. So where's the arrow? All the way down there. I gotta turn it. There we go. It took forever, but I got it finally pushed on to the RGB connector. The regular RGB, it's not the ARGB. Gotta be careful because this board has both. Okay, so everything's in place. I got the screws holding the video card in. Video card's in, everything looks good right now. Oh, sounds like it might be time for a burn test. Hate to use that expression, but you never know. Got a lot of cable dressing to do, but I'll take care of that later. Okay, let me bring it up. Okay, here it is. I'm behind it now, sitting at my desk. I brought up a mouse and keyboard. Let me connect these guys up. 2 USB 2.0 slots to put them into. Okay, I have a power connector around here somewhere. Here it is. Put a power connector into the power supply. And I have a video card connector. This is going to go through my capture card. And I'll plug that into HDMI port I took the cover off of. Let me start the capture, the Elgato. No signal, of course. I'm being very optimistic here. Let's see how this works. Do I have anything else that I need to hook up? Oh, the internet. Let me hook that up. Hook it up to the port here. Should be it. Let me turn the power on. Well, that's a good sign. The motherboard lit up. So we don't have an absolute short. And then I guess I hit the power button over here and see what we got. I see lights. Are all the RGB on? Yeah, it looks like all the fans are on. All 4 of them. Of course, that's always on because it's getting it from the PCI slot. Do we have anything here coming up? Nothing yet. There, it came on. So what I'll do is I'll now switch to the actual screen capture. Get it started here. We now have it back here. Let me see if I can log into this thing. See what happens here. We're there. Let me log in. And we're in. That's great. It's on sort of low resolution right now, but that's okay. Just wanted to make sure it was working. I thought it was going to install drivers, or maybe it did it while I was thinking that it wasn't communicating and it was installing whatever it needed. Let me see, does this work if I go into the internet? Microsoft Edge. It does work. We're into YouTube. Let me see if I can find my channel. And there we go. Let me click on my face here, see what we got. Hi everybody. Oh look, now it's installing the video drivers. So the internet works and now the video drivers are being installed. I have to agree to this. Okay, now I need to boot up Acronis and copy the SSD drive to the M2. So let me shut this thing down and move on from there. Okay, I've gone into the BIOS. Now let me see if I can force a boot from the USB. Go to boot menu. This thing called boot override might work. Let's click on this. Yep, looks like it's working. A very small print, but let me boot Acronis. Hit number 1. Booting up. It's got a Linux loader to it. And here it comes. Okay. We're in Acronis. So let me go ahead now, do a utilities. And I want to do a clone disk. And I want to do a manual. Okay, hit next. Okay, the disk I want to clone is to this one. Hit next. Hopefully it sees the M2. Yep, there it is. It says it's not initialized. I'm going to tell it to go there as a destination. Click next. The size of the original partition will be respectively changed to fit the new drives. I'll let it enlarge, why not? I'm going to say proceed, see what happens. Okay, it looks like it finished successfully. So I'll say okay to this, and it tells me I'm going to just shut this down now. I'm going to disconnect. Let's see what we have here. Oh, it's already booting up in the Windows. I'm not sure which drive it's going into though. Okay, I wonder where we're at here. Find out in a minute. I'm going to log in. Seems faster, so it may be the M2. Let's see what the drives look like. This PC, wow, it did. It booted from the M2 because that's drive C. Drive D right now is the other drive. So let me shut this down and make the final changes to the case, and we're ready to go. Okay, now for the final changes. I pushed that through. So let me disconnect. I won't disconnect it. I'm just going to tuck it away because you never know if I'm going to need that if there's a problem. When the system is tested or not. Okay, and then I'm just going to remove the power though, right here. I'm going to push this drive through to the other side, and I'm going to push the power connector on this one, like this, and I'll just tuck this away in here for now until I'm ready to do the cable dressing on it. And then this guy I'll just tuck away for now in here. And I just need to go around front and make sure that the other cable is connected in as another drive. So let me do that. So then all I have to do is connect this one up. I'll put it as the first SATA connector. And now the hard drive is hooked up again. Push that back there and we're ready to go. I'll put the covers back on and move on from there into testing now. Well, it's been a long day, but finally got it all done. Not only did some performance testing on it comparing to the way it was before the upgrade, but also made sure all the applications were running, including a couple of critical ones that it's currently being used for in light of the current world situation. Works fine. I have a little bit of cable management to do in the back, and I do want to replace that one SATA data cable. I'm going to put in one of the black ones that came with the case. But other than that, it's pretty much done and working fine. The charts that I showed a few seconds ago before this closing were interesting, weren't they? A big improvement. And actually, this backup PC beat my main editing PC, sitting right here next to me, in terms of a test rendering of a video that I recently did. Matter of fact, I think the last one that I put up. Now, there was a little bit of a disadvantage between what I have on my main PC and what this one has. That one was using for its drive to render to a regular SSD connected to a SATA port, whereas this one was using the M2 drive that it has to do that. Now I have an M drive on this one too. I could probably match it up and see what the difference is. That M2 drive is a Samsung Evo. It is faster than this one, as you saw from the charts, but not a lot. Anyway, I think it did well, and it's a good rig going forward. I don't plan any other upgrades for it right now, but we'll see. Well, hopefully you got something out of this video, and if you did, do me a favor and consider subscribing to my channel. My head will pop up here in a moment. Just click on it, follow along. There's no charge, believe me, for subscribing to a YouTube channel, and it will help this channel continue to grow. I'd really appreciate it. Well, stay safe, stay healthy, and take care.